Take two. Little do you know, Coach Colin here, Sold Not For Sale podcast. We got Joe Rogan laying into Greta Thunberg. I don't know. Well, I do know what sparked this. They were talking about how they felt the world was going to end when they were kids, and the things they went through there. Then they started talking about the environmental movement of today, the whole climate change thing. And then, of course, if you're talking about that, you're going to end up talking about Greta Thunberg. But what Joe Rogan and his guests call her is the environmental version of the Catch Me Outside girl, which I thought was absolutely amazing. And I don't think they realize how true that really is. We'll get into that during the episode. I'm going to show you the Joe Rogan clip, of course, then Jordan Peterson and Tucker Carlson talking about Greta Thunberg. And then I'm going to show you some articles because people suspect, allegedly, that this climb to fame that she had that was so quick wasn't that organic. And then I'm going to show you some arrests because, you know, there have been people who have been alleging that these arrests are actually staged. But let's just get into it right now. Coach Colin Media, don't forget about that channel. Hit that subscribe button on that channel. We're trying to hit 2,000 subscribers, and thank you for the 1,000 subscribers. Let's get into the Joe Rogan episode.
Oh my God! Thank God it's over.
I remember those days in the 80s. We watched a film at school called The Day After. Did you see that? Which is a film about.
I think we've talked about that. Did we talk about that before? A film about after nuclear war?
Yeah, it's a film about Russia bombing America. It's very depressing. But we watched it at school, and we had numerous discussions about what would we do in the event of a nuclear holocaust, how would we try to survive it. But it was on our minds all the time. Mm-hmm. And there was also other apocalyptic scenarios, if you recall, like acid rain was a big one. The ozone layer was another one.
Yep.
My childhood was full of fears that the end of the world was nigh. And I think people feel that again today, for different reasons. And my approach to it is always to think, well, where are the real problems in terms of civilization really grinding to a halt? And what are the unreal problems that are just designed to whip up fear and make us panic and make us fret about the future? So I think distinguishing between those two things is probably quite important.
It is very important. It's also very important to recognize that when there's a thing that is getting people whipped up and is in the news constantly, for sure, someone's making money. That's why it's doing. I used to think they were warning us about the real dangers of this or that. I don't think that anymore. Now I think they can justify the fear-mongering by saying it's a legitimate concern because it has the opinions of a few people attached to it. But ultimately what they're doing is they're somehow or another using it to make money.
Yeah, well, they're either making money or they're making moral mileage, or both. So if you look at global warming is a perfect example, right? The climate change catastrophe, or the climate catastrophe as we now have to call it. There are a lot of people invested in this end of the world scenario who are making a lot of money from alternative sources of energy. But just as important as that, I think, they're making moral mileage. It's the issue through which they can pose as the saviors of humanity.
Right.
And it gives them a real sense of purpose. I mean, Al Gore is a classic example. He both makes money from climate change fear-mongering, and he also positions himself as a global authority on how to save humankind from the next apocalypse. So I think it's a combination of financial reward and moral reward that draws people to these apocalyptic scenarios.
Absolutely. And also audience capture in the case of like Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
Right. Here's this young lady who's become a celebrity by saying, "How dare you?" That was it. That's all it took.
That's all it took.
We're in the Catch Me Outside girl phase of all you need is like a good slogan. You know, let's get ready to rumble. Whatever it is.
She's the green version of the Catch Me Outside girl. That's what she is.
Thing.
It's like with someone like Greta, I think it was funny for a while that you had this 16-year-old kid saying, "How dare you," having a temper tantrum in public, essentially.
Yeah.
And all these politicians in America and Britain and across Europe were falling at her feet and staring at her in this wide-eyed fashion like she was some messianic figure come to deliver humanity from the end of the world. But more recently, I think the Greta Thunberg cult is just not funny anymore because she's now going around Europe and telling governments to stop investing in energy production, to stop investing in fossil fuel companies during an energy crisis.
And how old is she?
She's 21 now.
Imagine.
She should know far better.
Just imagine. Just imagine being 21 and having the president listening to you. I can't imagine you know how dumb I was when I was 21. I was shockingly stupid. Shockingly stupid.
When she started and she was 16, 17, she was very young, I often think to myself, when I was 16 and 17, the thought of being in public and saying things, I would have said the craziest stuff. But that's exactly what she did. And I think the problem is that there were so many people in the adult world who were willing to listen to her and who engaged in her hysteria about the end of the world. And so I often see the Greta phenomenon as a perfect example of how, on the one side, you have these cranks who are talking nonsense and pushing ideas that are just not true. But the bigger problem is the political world and the media world who really buy into it
Yeah.
and give it meaning and give it emphasis. And I think there's that kind of two-way relationship between these things.
I'm not saying that like Greta Thunberg is not an intelligent person, because she clearly is, and she's very young. And again, I was way dumber than her when I was her age. But what she said was not this extraordinary message of wisdom that would merit the kind of attention that she got. And that's why, and it's not within her power as a 16-year-old to get in front of all these people. So it's kind of like a form of exploitation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a willing exploitation, but it's you're using her as a political pawn for like sort of cementing an opinion that you must have on this subject.
That's absolutely what happened. Like every other teenager, she was narcissistic, self-involved, panicking about the adult world and how crazy it is. That's what every teenager's like. We all went through that period.
I did it. Yeah, we all do it.
We all did it. We screamed, "How dare you!" at our parents. You know, we thought, they're oppressing me. They won't let me go out. They won't let me do this. We all have these kind of oppression complexes when we're teenagers.
Yes.
The problem with hers is that it became this public spectacle, and it became a public spectacle precisely as a consequence of the political class who said, give us more, really sock it to us. It was almost like a kind of sadomasochistic relationship between these self-hating elites and this teenage girl who was more than willing to whip them in public. And you had this kind of, it was mutually beneficial. She got to feel like she was saving the world. They got to feel like they were being told off for being, the rulers of the world. And it was beneficial for both sides. But it was, when you look back on it, it was creepy as hell.
It's very creepy. And here's something to consider too.
Let that clip run a little long, because I like that part that he said about the whole weird relationship that she had with the elites and herself. Very, very interesting take on that. I stopped it here because Joe's about to say that when people see sitcoms depicting men as dumb and all the things that they push into these sitcoms, he's like, no, this is not, he's like, it's not a conspiracy. The people who make these shows actually watch these shows and they think it's funny. That's for another episode. We'll get into that little predictive programming, which he knows about, but he's acting like he doesn't know about it. Very weird. Now, let's get into the whole Greta Thunberg thing. Now, the fact that he's saying that he feels as though she's a political pawn, that's how a lot of people feel. And there's reason for that. Now, actually, you know what? Let's go back here. You're seeing Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson right now is on stage with Tucker Carlson. Jordan Peterson is not on stage with Tucker by mistake. He's not in front of all the audiences you see him in front of by mistake. It's not exactly organic. He actually has tickets. He starts a tour. He tries to get people to buy the tickets. He sells out a bunch of places. He goes in front of people. Tucker does the same thing. Hillary Clinton, politicians, they all do the same thing. So when you saw Greta Thunberg in front of this audience of people, a lot of people tend to have this mindset that it's not the same thing, and it couldn't be because this is environmental. So the talk of money is always pushed aside. It's not about money. It can't be. She's about saving the world. Look at her. She's saying, how dare you? We took away her childhood, all this stuff. This is obviously not about money. So they forget that it's possible for someone to have a publicist and people behind them, and that they're not in front of this audience for no reason. When she goes to Davos and the EU and recently the UN, this is not by mistake. This is, again, exactly what they said in the clip. The fact that she was solidifying this point that the environmentalists, or as Jordan Peterson calls them, the Gaia worshiping people who are willing to sacrifice all of humanity if it means saving the planet. She was driving their point home. And they were solidifying it in the sense of, if you went against what Greta had to say and you went against that speech, well, you're just attacking a young girl. It was almost like these people who are hell-bent on this whole climate change thing, they were using this young girl as a human shield. That's almost what it was like. Actually, it's pretty much what it was like. Now, let's get into the Jordan Peterson, Tucker Carlson video. In this, they are asked to speak on 2 words, and they're given a bunch of random different words. And finally, the gentleman gets to Greta Thunberg, And Jordan Peterson has a lot to say about her, and Tucker Carlson does as well. Let's get into it.
And so, 2 thumbs up for Joe Rogan.
Greta Thunberg. That opens up a whole topic.
I feel bad for Greta. Look, you got to think about this, man. Just think how bloody terrifying it would be if you were a 13-year-old girl. I mean, that's terrifying enough, but if you were a 13-year-old girl who was nervous about the future because of every lie that she'd been fed, and you started to become upset about that and to speak out, and then every bloody leader in the Western world kowtowed to you as if you were a prophetess. Do you know how destabilizing that would be? How in the world would you ever recover from that? I think that given what she's been through, given the absolute cowardice and betrayal of the leaders who've worshipped at her feet, like she's some sort of sage, that she's remarkably well put together. So that's what I think of Greta Thunberg.
Thank you.
Imagine using someone like Greta Thunberg for political ends. What a cold, evil person you would have to be. An autistic child. And she's going to carry your message?
Yeah, it's a pathetic.
Well, it's disgusting.
Yep.
It's abuse of a child. And the people who abetted that, which would include the entire Western news media, ought to be ashamed. They're criminals, in my view.
All right, Tucker, I'm going to throw.
So that's what they have to say. They're saying pretty much the same thing as Joe Rogan. Political pawn, using this girl politically to get this point across. Exactly what I was saying, kind of a human shield for the climate change movement. Because who wants to be the person that's arguing with a 13-year-old girl? 15, 16, 17, now she's 21. But who wants to be arguing with this young girl? Who wants to be going at this young girl? What person is going to sit down and debate with her if she would ever sit down to a debate, which she will not. But who's going to actually do it? Nobody. Nobody wants to be that person that owns her. You know what I mean? Destroys. Nobody wants to be that person. Now, there's a bunch of arrests that have happened. Greta Thunberg, activists arrested, climate change protests. That's her looking very painful at the camera. That smile, or that actually goes away and turns into a smile later on. A lot of people are suggesting that every time you see her in these situations, that these are staged. And it's for good reason. Again, this is the exact same arrest. Now she's smiling, right? So it's very interesting the way this goes. Another arrest here. She was forcibly removed. I love how it says forcibly removed up there, and they're just walking alongside either side of her. Forcibly removed. They just said, could you move, please? And she was like, sure. And there's always pictures. There's always cameras out. It's always the best view. But here's the thing. Here's a story that a lot of people don't know. That during her first protest, she went to where she was going to go. She sat down in front of a building. And out of nowhere, this PR guru, as it says there in the title, just happened to be there. Now, her mother actually didn't work alongside this PR guru, but they knew each other from actually going to a climate change conference of sorts. It was close knit enough that she interacted with this PR guru. Greta went to this protest. All of a sudden, that guru showed up, and by guru I mean in the space. He is amazing at what he does. He knows how to make somebody famous, right? Just for lack of a better term. He knows how to make someone famous. He just happens to be walking by while she's sitting there after knowing and meeting her mother briefly. Then he takes a picture of her, posts it all over his social media. It gets a bunch of hits, bunch of likes, spreads like wildfire because he's literally posting it on his PR site, his personal site. She actually posts the same picture, which is very odd because how could she get hold of the same picture that he just took if they don't know each other? So that was actually very odd as well. Maybe she screenshotted it. Maybe she saw what happened, screenshotted it, posted it herself. That could happen. But people are very much saying that it wasn't all that organic what happened. And when you saw her in that first video, when we all first saw her, the How Dare You video, no one ever thinks to ask, because again, it's one of those narratives where it's like, how dare you question this? What do you think this is? But how did she get in front of that crowd? She was 13 or 15 or something like that. How on earth do you get in front of a crowd like that? How are you the person that's chosen? Well, it's because you know this PR guru and his company is helping you get your name out there. And he is allegedly having conversations behind the scenes to make sure you get there. And when you do, you give the best performance of your life, and everybody knows about that performance. How dare you? Looking at the camera, scolding the crowd, talking about how everybody has taken her childhood away. Just to read this, who's really behind the 16-year-old Greta Thunberg ugly feud between her opera singer turned climate change activist mother and the green PR team man who she accuses of exploiting her? Again, these two actually met briefly. There was a whole meeting, not a formal meeting, but they've met each other. They knew each other, and she was using her daughter allegedly, and that's why people say, when you just heard Tucker say, how ugly of a person do you have to be? Use this person as a political pawn. That's actually what's happening. And at the beginning, they talked about making money or moral mileage. In this case, there is money to be made. There's no her showing up to places. Just like Tucker, if you all of a sudden are like, wow, Tucker's speaking at this place. Tucker's a great guy. I love Tucker. I'm the Black Tucker Carlson. That's how I identify. And if you don't call me that, you're a bigot. Okay? And I'm going to petition to get you arrested. It's real. But if he's speaking at a place, he's getting paid. He's making some kind of money. If you see Jordan Peterson speaking at a place, he's getting paid. He's making some kind of money. The same thing applies to her. A lot of people just don't realize that. Now, when you look at these arrests that go on with her, it's very interesting to see. Check this out. Notice that they kind of focus just on her. There's a lot going on here. They focus on her, and then also the crowd of activists also focus on her. Check this out. Here, I won't even give this sound because I want you guys to see it. So they're taking her right now, right? Just her. Everybody else is still there. They didn't pick up everybody all at once. 2 to a person, I guess. Guess that's how it works. Now they're throwing her in a bus where she's not really look, they're just gonna put her in this bus. She just kind of walks into the bus. So what does that even mean? They just get moved? Is that really an arrest? I've never seen anyone get arrested like that. Have you? Even in a paddy wagon, they're gonna cuff you up, right? Am I wrong about that? Let's check this out. So I gotta just remove that little part of violence there. But notice that there's this whole crowd. That police officer just body checked somebody. And then you look, he's pushing somebody aside there, right? But then look, it's just her. Look at that cop there. He's like looking at her, but making sure not to touch her. Same with the other cop who was like moving people around. Then all of a sudden, this woman goes right beside her. All of these people who should be scattering or just dropping to the floor like they usually do, they all go and find her right away. They center themselves around her. They all sit down. She sits down along with them. And then again, they proceed to only take her. I didn't realize she says a little bit in this video. Let's hear what she has to say. Why not? Here, let's play this.
Crisis. We are in a planetary emergency, and we are not going to stand by and let people lose their lives and livelihood and be forced to become climate refugees when we can do something.
So they actually do end up taking another person. That's very interesting. But yeah, it's just it's odd the way all of this works when it comes to her. Here, let's move on to this one even. Actually not. Let's do this one here. Here, check this out. Let's silence this. Again, the focus is on her. The cameras are there. How often, when it comes to this Just Stop Oil, all these people who you always see in the middle of the streets, anytime you see these guys and they're stopping traffic and all that stuff, who's filming? It's always a random person with their phone. Why is it that when she shows up to places, there's legit camera people there and there's a bunch of them? Why is that? Look, they're all carrying her, but there's a bunch of protesters there. But it's the whole focus is on her getting carried away. Very leisurely, I might add. This is not a roughing up. Just shout out to YouTube, just so you know, if you guys are watching this. This is not someone getting roughed up. This is not violence. This is a fun time. This is a fun time for anyone. Then they stand here. I actually want to play the sound for this one, because somebody actually says, oh, you're going to be famous. Look at all of them standing around. Why are they standing around? Just watching her.
You also want those pretty man?
She's laughing. It's very weird, man. I don't know. Seems like a photo op to me. I don't know about anybody else. It seems like a definite photo op. They were standing there. Let's check this one out. This is the same one. So yeah, these arrests, a lot of even just look at this one image. I didn't even catch this the first time. Look at the boom mic that they put over her. That's not regular. Why is somebody there with a boom mic? And they're putting, and if you don't know what that is, that's a microphone that wherever it's pointing, it's getting the sound directly from there. So if you have it above someone's head and it's just pointing down at them, you'll be able to hear everything that they say. You know, boom mic. This is not an omnidirectional mic. You know, you have mics that take in just this circumference. You have microphones like this that you speak directly into, and then you have microphones like that you can point at things and they get the sound. Little audio engineering thing I know about. But yeah, look at this. I don't know, man. A lot of people are saying that this stuff is all staged. And it kind of makes sense when you look at what Joe's saying, what Jordan Peterson's saying, what Tucker's saying. Maybe she is just a political pawn. But even more so, you know, people keep talking about her like as if she doesn't know what's going on in life. Again, Joe even said she's a smart girl. Probably smart enough to know that she should be making money every time she shows up to these places. The way that she shows up to these protests is the same way that Kim Kardashian shows up to a club. You know what I mean? Or any celebrity shows up to a club. They give you a certain amount of money because they want you to make an appearance, because it's going to bring notoriety to the thing that's going on. You know, our protest had Greta. You had Greta? Oh, yeah. Did she get arrested? Sure did. Sure did. It was something to see. She even said a few words. Oh, so iconic. Did she say, how dare you? No, we couldn't afford her to say, how dare you. We wanted to, but it was like $40,000. It was like 40 grand. We couldn't. We just had her carried out by some police. It was just fake police. They just carried her out. But that's just my take on it. You know, when these guys are all talking about her being a political pawn, then you read into how her rise to fame wasn't that organic. She just seems like a plant. Oh, and the last thing. I was talking about Joe Rogan not knowing how right he is when he called her the environmental Catch Me Outside girl. Well, if you know anything about the Catch Me Outside girl, she was actually on Dr. Phil. The people who own Dr. Phil and Dr. Phil himself are tight with the people who are on TMZ, or who own TMZ, I should say. The people who own TMZ are actually tight with a record label called Atlantic Records. So what Atlantic Records did is they had her as an artist. But whenever you have an artist, especially a hip hop artist, especially a young artist in today's world, you do a rollout. But they do very, very smart rollouts in hip hop nowadays. It's wild what they'll do. And it's throughout the whole music industry. Her rollout was, they already had her to Atlantic. Okay. She wasn't signed officially, like in the media or anything, but they knew her already. So how are they going to roll her out? They rolled her out through Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil had her on the show. TMZ started covering it like crazy. Her buzz spread like wildfire. Then her social media blew up. Then even more so, all of her social medias blew up. Then there were more and more videos of her. She then had enough popularity. You wait until a certain point, and then they announced that they signed her as a music artist. And then when she made music, it did well no matter what, because they already created that buzz through the companies that they were aligned with. So That's kind of what happened with Greta. Same kind of thing, really. So I don't know if they realized how right they were in calling her the environmental catch me outside girl. But that's all I wanted to say, guys. Let me know what you think of Greta. Let me know what you think of what Joe had to say. Let me know what you think of Jordan had to say. Other than that, I'm out.